my first question to you guys is this, because it's something I've been thinking about all week. Well, since Monday, I should say. I look at that Rams game and I say, is that the signature win that we use as a launching pad for the rest of the season? Like last year, the Dolphins got off to a hot start. You know, they were in position to win division, and then they were positioned to make the play. They had a chance for a number of signature wins last season. They came up small in all those games. So is this, and Anthony, I'm going to start with you on this one. Is this a signature win for them? Is this a win that's going to be a launching pad? They can kind of hang their hats on for the rest of the season.
I was thinking about that during the broadcast because, they mentioned that the Dolphins have this habit of getting into streaks. And I think last year we had won 8 or 9 straight or something like that. And, could we do it in the second half of the season, which is essentially what you want. You want to be hot in the second half of the year, more so than you want to be hot in the first half of the year. Unfortunately, you're supposed to actually win some games in the first half of the year, too. So I would say,
memo.
What's that?
So I think they missed that memo.
Yeah, they didn't get that one. But I would say that this felt to me more like a mini boss than the main attraction.
Okay.
I
like it.
To me, the signature win is Green Bay on Thanksgiving. If you can beat Green Bay on Thanksgiving, let's say we win these next 2, which I'm not writing off, but they are teams that we should beat.
Yes.
As long as Tua is behind center. And then we go to Green Bay on Thanksgiving. It's pretty much a national holiday, football on Thanksgiving. The Lions play, the Cowboys play, the Packers play, right? And we get to play one of those teams for the second year in a row. Last year, we ruined the Cowboys. This year, can we ruin the Packers? And I would feel really good at that point, not only because that is the signature win I'm looking for, but also because then we're 6-6 at that point. And our season is completely different than it was.
Yeah. And like you said, Anthony, we can't look past these next 2 games. Getting off to a 2-6 start, you lose the luxury of looking past certain opponents. You just, so we do need to focus on the Raiders, focus on the Patriots, but they are winnable games. Absolutely.
Especially the Pats. They're playing well right now.
Yeah, they are.
That's a dangerous game, but we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the Raiders, they're a dangerous team too. They have players that can potentially wreck our games. Guys like Max Crosby.
But nobody's hemming and hawing if we win these 2 games, right? Everybody's saying that they're supposed to.
Well, we're favored by 7 points.
Yeah.
Not that we care about what the betting odds are, but they're there for a reason. So
I will say one more thing before you want to go to the next one. The media seems to think this is a signature win. The media is Dolphins crazy right now. I've probably watched 3 or 4 different, stations that are even Mike Florio's giving us props. Like Mike Florio never gives us props, right?
Yeah.
True.
It's the media,
it's on the same level as like Chris Sims giving us props.
Right. Like the media sees this as a huge win. So perhaps I should see it as a bigger win than I do. But it's a very good launching point.
No, I like your analogy, Anthony. This is not like being the main boss. This is like, I like that analogy, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. Actually, Steve, what do you think about it, man? Steve, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry. A win put us 1 game back out of playoffs, which obviously is where we want to be. Yeah, we're literally 1 game away from being in the playoff tree. A loss put us in line for the 3rd pick of the draft.
Yeah.
So I do believe
what a swing, man! Like, right?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I believe that this game really set the tone for the locker room for the rest of the year. If they would have lost this, essentially, we're not tanking for anybody. But if we would have lost this, I don't think the heart would have been in the rest of the season. We're not really in line. There's too many miracles that need to happen. We still have room to lose 1, maybe 2 games and still squeeze in as a low seed team. Losing it to LA just kind of squashes all kind of hope. You kind of gave away any buffer that you think you have, and you truly don't get that win on primetime that we talk about so much. So I think this was probably the most significant win on the schedule, minus Green Bay and San Francisco.
Yeah. I mean, you can only win the games that are right in front of you. And this Rams game came at, from my perspective, it came at an inopportune time because the Dolphins were just starting to kind of hit their stride offensively. Their defense was reeling. And then you get a Rams team that has Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford throwing him passes, Kyron Williams, who had a big fumble in this game.
Told you.
Yeah. So, this. So, Josh, I'm going to ask you the same question, man. Is this a launching pad? Can the Dolphins use this one?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is. I feel about this game a little bit more strongly than Anthony does. I think it is. If there is something between a mini boss and a final boss, this is where this lies, right?
I mean, boss.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's an Elden Ring, a Sentinel boss, if you will, for those gamers out there.
Yep.
I think this win, to Steve's point, was the turning point of the season. If you win, good things can happen. If you continue to win, if you lose, you're pretty much done. I mean,
right.
Barring just massive casualties on every other team ahead of you, we're not making the playoffs if we lose this game.
Yeah.
But if you look at the remaining schedule, so when we did our season preview, if you haven't watched it for those viewers, go check it out. We were all completely wrong.
7-0, baby. That's what we had. That's what we had.
Yeah, I know. But if you went back, we all collectively, albeit we all had different predictions, but we all thought the beginning of the season was easy. The last 6, 7 games were going to be insanely hard.
Yeah.
Well, now looking at the schedule and looking at how the teams have played this year, gentlemen, I heard a report. I don't know how accurate it was, but we have statistically the easiest remaining schedule in the NFL.
Yeah.
So if you look at these, right, win against the Rams, and if we win every game that we should win, I'm not saying that we will win, but if we win every game that we should win, we could easily get to 9-10 wins and make the wild card, honestly.
Yeah.
Which means we're losing one of the Packers 49ers games and we're winning the other, and then we're running the table on everything else. Raiders seem beatable. Patriots seem beatable. Packers seem beatable, in my opinion. The Jets are a dumpster fire. The Texans are a dumpster fire. The Browns are a dumpster fire. The 49ers are terrifying. So, I mean,
yeah,
very beatable or very winnable games remaining. I'm not saying we're going to win them, but very winnable games.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And again, like we were saying, we can't look past any teams. We can't look past this Raiders game and think, well, this is a win. In seasons past, they would play the Panthers. They played the Panthers last year, I think it was, and they went down 14-0 to that Panthers team. And I was sitting there thinking, I am not concerned at all. The Dolphins are going to find a way to come back and win this game.
I remember where I was for that game.
Oh, yeah?
I was at East Hill Farm with my wife in
Okay.
New Hampshire, and they went down 14. I was like, this is fine. Like, easy peasy, no worries. I'm not stressed.
Yeah. I was actually driving home. I remember where I was for that game, actually. I was driving home from Maryland. My wife and I went down to Maryland for a little mini weekend.
It sounds like you and I are the problem. We were on vacation when the Dolphins played. That just can't happen.
But we're not allowed to watch another game, is what I'm hearing.
But no, I came back. We got back, immediately flipped on the TV. Dolphins are down 14-0. And I thought, this is fine. They got this.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how this season's going. That's not how this team's going to be. You can't look past the Raiders. You can't look past the Patriots or the Browns or the Jets. You have to take every game as it comes, because you start 2-6. You need to take every game. Treat every game like it's a Super Bowl. So let's get into this Rams game, because the Dolphins treated this game like it was a Super Bowl. They treated the Bills game like it was a Super Bowl too. They played the Bills super tough. They played this Rams team every bit as tough. So I wasn't on the show last week, but my biggest concern regarding this matchup was the Florida State boys, Josh. The Florida State boys. Braden Fisk. Yep.
I don't know if you want to show that off right now, to be honest.
No, you're right. Look, Look, I don't even want to talk about that. Let's continue, fellas.
Braden Fisk, Jared Verse, a couple of Florida State guys. The Rams lost Aaron Donald and then just kind of,
Reloaded.
leaned fully into rebuilding that defensive line. And what a job they did, because those guys, along with Kobe Turner, like, that's one hell of a defensive line. And against the Dolphins offensive line, had a bit of a rough day. Josh, what'd you see in this game?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this was an extension of last week's game, where last week's game against Buffalo, I thought we showed out amazing. I thought we should have won that game. I thought we were the better team for most of the game.
Yeah.
And I thought Tua had a phenomenal game. I thought our offense looked really, really good. I thought our running game looked really, really good. I thought the play calling was really, really good. And in this game, I feel the exact same way. I just think that our defense was the difference, right? I mean, I think two things for me really stood out when I rewatched this. I watched this game 3 times. What really stood out to me the first and second watch were that we won on early downs, right? That was both on offense and defense. I think that was the difference between us winning and losing this game. And then secondly, I thought the defense really showed out, right? I think they came hungry. I know we all kind of had said it in various ways in our text chain. They played angry. They played like they had something that they were ready to prove some stuff. And I think, Anthony Weaver called an amazing game. I think Mike McDaniel called an amazing game. I think Sealer completely transforms our defensive line. Yeah. And it was absolutely, and I'll get to him in the best segment in sports media history. But I think, him getting back was pivotal. I think Cater and Howard, not Howard, Holland coming back was huge for the defense. I thought Chop had arguably his best game as a Dolphin, and his best 2-game streak as a Dolphin. I mean, he's had a sack in both games. He was all over the ball. Sealer had his hands everywhere on balls. It was just, well, that sounded dirty. Just lots of hands on balls, fellas. I do think that, I don't want to overlook the impact of losing Austin Jackson for the year. I don't know if one of you fellas are going to talk about it, but I thought he was very solid and kind of just a steady, not amazing, not bad, but just a steady presence on that line. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And I think losing him sucks. If I'm being completely honest with you.
It does. Losing Austin Jackson absolutely sucks. But honestly, I was concerned. But to see Kendall Lamb come in, in that spot, Kendall Lamb has been in this league 11 years.
Wow.
And he's not this super flashy offensive lineman. He's not, a high draft pick. He's never been a full-time starter, not really. But he is a guy in this locker room that Dolphins look to for leadership. Yeah. And I like having Kendall Lamb over there. They asked Mike McDaniel today about Kendall Lamb, and he said Kendall Lamb played well. Patrick Paul could supplant him. He doesn't know. I don't want to see Patrick Paul supplant Kendall Lamb unless Kendall Lamb plays just terribly. I thought Kendall Lamb held his own in this game. He's not Austin Jackson. He's not Austin Jackson.
No, but I'm with you though. Patrick Paul, stay on the left side, learn the left side, become a very good contributor to an eventual starter, and then start learning other positions. I'm with you 100%. Before I shut up and let other folks talk, some stats that I think are very important for this game. We had 4 sacks. We had 1 interception. We had 238 total yards. Would have been 300 if Tua didn't take those dumb 3 sacks. 15 first downs. We were 6 for 13 on third down, which I thought was good. My favorite stat of the game. Can you fellas guess?
Penalties. 1 penalty.
That's my man. My guy. 1 penalty.
Yep.
2 for 3 in the red zone. I don't like the fact that we had 3 yards per carry on average for the whole game. I thought that was a little low, but I do like the 4.5 yards per play on average from a team standpoint. And I will say this. This is the second week in a row where the Dolphins have scored the majority of their touches in the second half of the game. If we can continue that trend, we should win a decent amount of football games to finish out the year.
Nice. I like it. The one penalty, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. It's something we've been railing about all season long. Play more
We've had
football.
games of what it was, 11 penalties, 12, 13 penalties, 15 penalties.
And the
And it was
penalty
mad.
it was just one of the gunners on special teams not coming back in bounds. It was like
Yeah.
an unconsequential penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know why they call 15 yards for that. They called him for an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. 15 yards for not running back in bounds.
Yeah, it's
Meanwhile, DJ Moore left the field last weekend and went and sat on the bench, and that's not unsportsmanlike conduct. The NFL is weird with their rules, man.
Yeah. So, all right, Anthony, react to everything Josh said. I mean, it was. What do you think about the game? What did you see?
Yeah, my bottom line was that I felt encouraged by the win, but there's a lot of work for this team to do still. I think if every drive we had was the first drive of a half, we would be the best team in the league because that's when we scored our touchdowns. The first drive in the first quarter, the first drive in the third quarter, we score. So something to be said for our scripted offensive plays when we come out there. Doing pretty good with those, guys. Doing pretty good. I will say I do disagree. I would like to see Patrick Paul out there at right tackle over Kendall Lamb. I want to see him get reps. Nothing against Kendall Lamb, but it's twofold. Everybody's getting hurt on the offensive line, and we need a guy like Lamb who can play all the positions to be able to rotate. We got to see Lester out there again in place of Robert Jones, which I never want to see.
No.
And so I would almost rather get Paul those reps at right tackle, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that because we can argue that till our faces turn blue. The biggest thing that I did not realize until after the game, until the second rewatch, is that Alec Ingold didn't play this game.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the reason we couldn't run the ball made way too much sense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is arguably our MVP. If you compare our running game in this game versus our running game when he plays, it's not even comparable. It's night and day. 3 yards per carry in this one. We ran the ball 22 times. Nice balance, by the way. 28 runs, 22 runs, 28 passes. I like to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But man, was Ingold missed. I really wanted to make sure I mentioned that because, watching Julian Hill overrun Verse on the stretch play, before the ball's even snapped. What are you doing? I just... I think I was raging internally at that point, just watching a tight end who is supposed to know what he's doing run right past the guy that he's supposed to block for the stretch play, and then the stretch play gets blown up by, the guy you were supposed to block. And then he turns around and looks at Tua like, what? You're supposed to block him, dude.
He's
so
such
crazy.
I don't think I've been more wrong about a player in quite some years.
Yeah.
One other thing I did really want to mention, because I think Josh touched on a lot of my points, but no, that's okay. That's completely fine. Is accountability is what we're seeing. It's something we've been preaching on the show, and it's something that we saw. David Long got cut, by the way. We haven't mentioned that yet. That's incredible. But in this game, David Long only played on special teams, as did Marcus May, as did Duke Riley. So 3 guys who have contributed on defense in the past, albeit not well, all kind of relegated to special teams. Also, Raheem Mostert was essentially benched. He didn't get a single carry in this game. He did help us tremendously in the passing game later on, thankfully. Yeah. But I think there was a point there to be proven that if you can't hold on to the ball, because Jalen Wright got his carries, right? Mm-hmm. If you can't hold on to the ball, you're not going to get the ball. So I hope that Mostert is back in his starting position next weekend. I think the point was proven. Because we did miss him, but I am also a big proponent of, if you're not going to perform, then you're not going to be on the field.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I did notice that about Mostert as the game wore on. It's I don't think Mostert's gotten a carry yet, and then they asked McDaniel about it, and McDaniel kind of just
sidestepped it.
Yeah, he kind of sidestepped that was the game script. That's how we had. No, you don't plan to not give your top running back or one of your top 2 backs. Yeah, you don't plan to not give Raheem Mostert carries. Well, you do plan to give. You do plan it. Yeah, you don't say that's a game script thing.
Yeah, sometimes I wish coaches would just be like talk about accountability. Just be honest about it. Be like, no, he fumbled 2 games in a row. They were key fumbles. He needed to take a day. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. And he did have that big catch on a long third down that led to a first down. You know, he was out there, but I support it. I completely support it. You know, if you're going to put that fumble against the Bills was so huge and so backbreaking. That fumble against the Colts was so huge,
that's
so
why we lost those
backbreaking.
games.
Yep. So you know what? Take a seat. Let the younger guys do it, and sit in timeout. Think about what you did.
Also, I'm putting together a new design, fellas. It's a milk carton with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on it. If
Okay,
anybody
yeah.
sees them, please let me know. Would
Yeah,
love
I'm-
to.
You know
Also,
what?
if they find Jalen Waddle's hands,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd like to see those too.
They've
Because,
been separated from his body.
Yeah.
Jesus.
yeah. They've been. I mean, I've seen enough out of them to know that they're going to be. They can turn this around on a dime. There's going to be a game where they're both just going to go off for 150 yards. You know, I've seen enough out of them to know that they're going to be okay. But man, what a disappearing act this season. It's
My fantasy
been
teams are struggling, man.
you and me both. I have Waddle on my fantasy team.
I have Waddle and Mostert and
Oh,
Tua.
yeah, I have Tua on my one. I have Waddle. I have Waddle and Tua on my one team, and I can't put Waddle in my starting lineup anymore. Not until further notice. I can't do it.
I have no choice. So here we go. It's the Waddle Show. Mike Evans, come back, please.
Oh yeah, Mike. That's a tough one. All right, Steve. What'd you see in this game, man?
All right, take two.
Yeah.
No, so my third downs that I wanted to say was Tua was 9 of 12 for 137 yards on third down. And most of those
Good
third
stat.
downs were incredible moments. Like they were plays that needed to be made in order to either keep the drive alive, but keep the lead going. Because a lot of those third downs had converted into either a field goal, a touchdown, so on and so forth. And the defense really caused a lot of the word I was thinking of for this game was disruption. And the defense kind of really just made that happen. They made Matt Stafford look super uncomfortable. And he threw the ball 47 times, something in that
46.
ballpark, 46 times. And, somebody at his age, I know he's an Iron Man, but he really, really got the miles put on him in Detroit. And I don't think that throwing the ball 40 plus times a game is really going to help his case at all in the future. And I really think we're starting to see the decline of Stafford. I think we had mentioned that in the beginning of the season when we were going over all these games, but he's definitely not the Matt that the Rams once had, and he's certainly not the Matt that the Lions once had. He's still that gamer at heart, but I don't think he's really so there's a problem with having a coach like Sean McVay. You're always going to have a good team, no matter how bad and how mediocre your players are. Your team's always going to compete. So it's always going to look like they're doing well. But I really think it's time for Stenson Bennett to come in and maybe even show a little bit to see what he's got. I'm not saying now. I'm not saying, they're only 4-5. They're still in a playoff hunt. But later down the road, I think this is the season that we should see him get some real game time in. If there's a couple games at the end of the season where LA's just down and out, don't play Garoppolo. Put Bennett in. See what he's got. If you're going to try to save Matt Stafford for next year for any particular reason, and you're out of the playoffs or just you start completely not making it now, I think now is a good time to start looking into the younger players here in LA. They did a rebuild one time, and then the very next season they made it to an NFC championship game. McVay is that guy. He can make, like I said, a team with a couple fresh guys go really far. They lost Aaron Donald, huge, and we can see it on this team. It's he was the most relevant piece on that defense, and it completely shows because they're not the defense they once were. And when their offense can't score a touchdown, it's hard for any defense. Now, this is the first time that they've done this since 2002 or something like that, and only the 8th time in 8 years that McVay hasn't had a touchdown. But it's pretty hard to put a defense up against a wall like that and expect a W to come out. So,
Mhm.
Sean McVay is that guy that can get those wins. So like I was saying, it is kind of, it's always good to have a coach like that, but sometimes it's your Achilles heel having a great coach, because you're never going to give these guys like Stenson Bennett a chance if you're always just on that cusp of a playoff with a guy who's been sacked probably almost 800 times in his career.
Yeah, it's pretty
So many
wild.
times.
Yeah.
And I still think Stafford's a top 7-8 quarterback in this league. But
I
I
do.
agree with you. I think it's maybe not this year, because I think they can still make a run here. But
come towards the end of the season, if they got nothing to play for,
Oh, no, of
I say
course.
you play that kid. Don't play Jimmy. And I know that's what they're probably going to do. See what Jimmy's got left. You know what I mean? Or maybe they don't, but he's
Nothing.
clearly second. He's
Yeah.
clearly second. But I think they should give the kid a shot at some point this season.
my fantasy team
Stafford-
would appreciate, or my dynasty league would appreciate that, because guess what I have in my dynasty league too?
Do you have Stetson?
I sure do.
I think he's going to
Stafford
be
missed
good
him.
in the future.
Stafford missed a lot of open guys in this game, man.
He
I
did.
sure did.
It was not his. He missed a surefire touchdown to Kyrie
Oh.
Williams. They harped on it in that game, but he did miss some open guys. He had some, but he also made some nice throws. Let's not completely trash the guy. Like he made some.
Mhm.
He threw some a couple of dimes to Cooper Kupp that were just
That
Oh.
catch by Cup, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
shit. Puka had almost 100 yards at 96, and Cooper Kupp had 80.
yeah.
By the way, I do want to shout out one person that we haven't talked about yet, and he had a forced fumble in this game, and he was a preseason darling. Quentin Bell, where have you been, buddy? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah.
I knew that
he
man
came
was.
in-
Whew.
Yeah, he came in the rotation with him and Chop on opposite ends, which was
Mhm.
interesting. We haven't seen that yet this year.
No, I love
Yeah.
it though.
I almost forgot he existed, Anthony. I'll be
I
honest.
totally did. I had to
Yeah.
look up the number when we were watching the game.
Man crush in the
Yeah.
preseason.
I had a total man crush on him in the preseason too, and then Jalen Phillips goes down. They're dealing with injuries and Chop, and somehow Quentin Bell just never came back on my radar until that fumble. And then it was like, oh yeah, I remember him.
Yeah,
Where's he been? So yeah, great shout out, because we needed that play when he made it, and we need edge rushers, guys. Like Chop has shown flashes of
he's coming
being.
in. Yeah,
He's shown flashes, but we still need more consistency out of that position. And I'm not saying Quentin Bell is going to be that guy that's going to fill Jalen Phillips' shoes, but I mean, between him and Chop, maybe we can get a couple of splash plays from those two guys a game. That'd be nice.
They're obviously not happy with Mo Camara. He was.
I was
inactive
about to
again.
say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Josh.
No, you're right. Nailed it right on the head, which is devastating, because I had high hopes for him.
So did I.
Which I'm not saying he can't. I mean, Steve, what do you think? I mean, I still think he was a later pick. Needs some time to develop. He could still turn into something, but
Mo Camara?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know enough about him, to be honest, and I don't like our linebacking core to begin with, so I think any help is good help, really. I mean, Six has been killing it. Anthony Walker, he's been balling out, and I know we just got the guy from Seattle.
Dodson.
Yeah, and from what I'm hearing, now I don't know a whole lot about Seattle. I don't really ever watch Seattle games. But what I'm hearing from you guys and what I'm seeing from the chats is, coming off waivers, you're getting what you're getting, but the guy's still a baller. So
he was a starter every game until they, for some, I don't know. Everything I read on this, I went to the Seahawks forum on Reddit and in Bleacher Report, and they were all saying there must have been something behind the scenes.
Yeah,
that guy should have been cut.
Yeah.
By the way, they have now cut both of their middle linebackers this season, because they cut Jerome Baker a few weeks ago, and now they just cut Terrell Dotson. What is going on in Seattle?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Mike McDonald is trying to, he's trying to remake this team, and he's the youngest head coach in the NFL. He's trying to make his mark on this team.
Let's cut all of our starters.
Jettisoning your starting linebacking core. I don't know.
I do want to go back to Chop for a second. The sack that Javon Holland got, I was watching it again, right? And Chop has that sack, but he actually gets hit out of the way by Brooks.
So we really had 2 sacks theoretically. So that's 3 sacks in 2 games.
The 3 of them were trying all like to race each other to the quarterback, and Brooks ends up hitting Chop away from Stafford, and then Javon Holland gets the sack. It was pretty comical to watch. It wouldn't have been if we didn't get the sack, but since we did, it was fun. Yeah.
It's a lot easier to get us for us to wrap up a quarterback that can't move.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so before we move on to game balls and jock straps, the greatest segment in all of pro sports media, I do want to address David Long getting cut. What are our thoughts on that, Steve? What do you think about that?
He started off as a captain. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Right? We're all talking about the save David Long here, right? He started
yeah.
off as a captain, so I kind of feel like that's pretty crazy that he's cut already. They obviously saw he's one of them guys that, there's really 3 kinds of players in my eyes. There's players that don't show up in practice but are complete gamers, Johnny Manziel, in college. Then there's people who show up in practice who are really good in practice but can't prove it in the game, maybe Skylar Thompson. And then there's people that just show it in practice, on the field, kind of like a Tua. I think they got, the option A here where the guy shows up in practice, he knows his film, he knows the playbook, but it just doesn't show on the field. He can't read the play when he's right in front of it. He can read it on the screen. He was good for us
last year, right?
He was our arguably one of our defensive last year.
But this year he just seemed like he had flashes of he had really good flashes of moments, but overall a lot of his games were bench worthy. I mean, a lot of his play resulted in 8+ yards, a reception or a carry. He was waiting for the ball carrier to come to him. He wasn't really running downfield too much at people, and he was getting burnt in the backside. We all know he's a run stopping linebacker, and we need these linebackers to be able to cover. And I think that right there is a big reason why we can't have him. We can't have one-dimensional linebackers.
Yeah, and then you couple in the fact that he was dealing with over his career hamstring issues, but then I forgot what game it was this year where he really hurt his hamstring bad, and he never looked the same after that.
Okay, I mean, you don't want to keep him around for depth purposes. You don't want to Anthony.
I'm surprised they cut him. I don't think we should have cut him, but I mean,
I think the Dotson signing kind of spelled the end for him. I mean, he just looked out of place in this defense. Forget it's a completely different defense than we ran last year. He couldn't. The thing he was supposed to be good at, as Steve alluded to, the run defense. He had no gap discipline whatsoever. Consistently getting runs up the middle, getting gashed up the middle, especially against Buffalo. He couldn't cover a running back out of the backfield to save his life. Anthony Walker's way more athletic, right? So I don't know what the cap savings is. Maybe it's significant. Maybe they just thought, let's do you a solid. You're a better fit for a different defense. We're going to cut you so you can go start somewhere else. It was very obvious after the first few games of the season that he just wasn't going to work out. He's just not athletic enough for the defense that Weaver's trying to run.
Fair enough. It was certainly a surprise to me. That's all I'm going to say.
It was a surprise for sure. I'm not saying I'm not surprised, but you asked for a reason, so I tried to come up with one.
Yeah. Well, I did. I did ask for reasons. And Anthony Walker has been way better. He looks great back there. He does. Him and Brooks are a heck of a duo. Those two can stay healthy. I'm excited about our linebackers in the middle.